Ahoy there! I hope your seatbelts are fastened, your tray is in the upright position, your seat is leaning forward, your window blind is completely open, and of course your armrest is down, because heaven forbid somebody should try to land an aeroplane when there is one armrest that is up like this. Hi, welcome back to Board Game Bananas. Here are the bananas, and today we are landing some aeroplanes with the board game Sky Team. Sky Team is a cooperative board game in which the players place their dice on a mat in order to land an aeroplane. There are many ways in which you can crash, and only one way in which you can win. So without further ado, let's get set up. Setup for Sky Team is relatively simple. The pilot gets this blue shield, the co-pilot gets this orange one, and each of them get the corresponding 4 dice. Then set up the board as shown. Put all of these toggles in the off position so the green light isn't showing. Also, place the red thing on the red dot, the blue one on the blue dot, and the orange one on the orange dot. You'll also want this one to be straight. Prepare the 3 coffee cups by the side of the board, and finally you'll need to prepare these 2. This is an altitude marker showing how high up in the air you are, and this is the airport you're trying to land in, which in the beginning is going to be Montreal. Prepare the altitude marker by starting it with 6,000 in this space, and then you want these reroll tokens where there's a reroll token on the marker. And prepare the airport by placing aeroplanes where there's an aeroplane symbol on the marker. Obviously where there's 2, there you put 2 aeroplanes. And then you're set up and ready to go. Generally speaking, what happens in this game is that each player takes their dice, you roll them in secret from each other behind these screens, and then each player one by one is going to place some dice on the board in order to land the aeroplane. So without further ado, let's have another little look at the board and see how that works. The board is full of squares where players can place their dice. You'll notice that some of them are a solid blue colour. These can only be used by the pilot, whereas the solid orange ones can only be used by the co-pilot. The coffee squares you'll notice are both orange and blue, they can be used by either player. You'll also notice that some of the squares have numbers in them. You probably guessed what those are for already, that's right. In this square, for example, obviously it's blue so only the pilot can use it, but the pilot can only place a 1 or a 2 in that square. Here the pilot can only place a 2, here the co-pilot can only place a 4 or a 5, etc. I think you get the idea. You'll notice that these 4 squares are marked with a little warning symbol, a little exclamation mark inside of a triangle. What that means is that every single round, at the end of it, these 4 squares absolutely must have a dice in them. So let's talk in more detail about the gameplay. Each round will start with a phase where you can actually talk to each other. So at this point it's a good idea to mention, hey, we really want to get rid of this aeroplane, or we want to move forward 1 step, we want to move forward 2 steps. It starts with a tactical discussion. But at that stage, you can't mention specific dice or specific dice numbers. So you can't say to each other, hey, if you get a 6, you should put it here, or if I get a 1, I'm going to put it over here. Then when you've done that, each player takes their 4 dice, and then you roll them behind the screen, again in complete secret from each other, and at that point, you're not allowed to talk anymore. And might I just say at this point, if you're a married man and you're playing this game with your wife, take a moment to really enjoy the silence. But don't enjoy it too much, there's a game to play. I've already mentioned that for the pilot, 2 of the 4 dice have to go here and here each round, and for the co-pilot, 2 of the dice have to go here and here. If we look at these 2 positions first, these 2 combined control how much the aeroplane tilts, and obviously when you land you want it to be very central. If, for example, the pilot places a 4 and the co-pilot places a 2, because 4 minus 2 is 2, then the aeroplane would end up moving, you see these little triangles here, it would end up moving 2 triangles in that direction. Should these ever get to the point where we're pointing this little arrow at the X on either side, then the aeroplane has capsized and you have lost the game. These 2 squares here represent the engine, so they decide how far forward the plane will move each turn. Again, the pilot places a dice here, the co-pilot places a dice here, and by the way, just because they have to place dice in these squares doesn't mean that they have to place it in those squares first. You can place your dice in more or less any order that you like, except in a few cases that I'll get to shortly. But the way the engine works is that you add up the numbers together, so 4 plus 2 is 6. In this case, the 6 is between the blue and the orange along this marker. So what you do then at the end of the round is that you would end up moving forward 1 space like this. Since it's between the orange and the blue, you move 1 space. Had we selected numbers that are to the left of the blue, so let's say the pilot had placed a 1 there, then 1 plus 2 is 3, 3 is on this side of the blue, then you actually wouldn't move forward at all. So you would lose altitude, you lose altitude every round, but you wouldn't move forward at all. And obviously, had we selected a combined number that's bigger than the orange one, so in this case we've got a 10, then we would actually move forward 1, 2 spaces. At the end of each round, when each player has played the 4 dice, the altitude is going to drop by 1 space. Then there are these 3 spaces here which you'll notice that the captain has control over. These represent bringing down the wheels so that the aeroplane can land safely. When you place down one of these dice, you will then, I'll just move these out of the way so you can see, you'll then immediately turn this switch so the green side is on, which means that so you can see that it's on, and then you'll move the blue marker 1 step further that way. This naturally means in reality that it will be more difficult for the aeroplane to move forward because it's got its wheels down, it's slightly less aerodynamic. You can place these 3 dice in any order that you like. You don't have to do this one and this one and this one. And on the other side of the board we have the flaps that are on the wings. These are controlled by the co-pilot. Similarly, you place down the dice, switch it on, and then you move the orange 1 space forward. Again, it's harder to move forward when you have the flaps up because the plane's less aerodynamic. One difference here, as opposed to the pilot controlling the wheels, is that these do have to be done in order. So you have to do this one, then this one, then this one, then this one. You'll notice as well that the route to the aeroport is covered in aeroplanes. Should it ever get to the stage where we maybe start the round like this, and then we have to move, but there's an aeroplane in the way, then you have crashed and lost the game. The way that you remove the aeroplanes is by using these squares here. You'll notice the co-pilot has 2, the pilot only has 1. If we were to place, for example, a 3 here, the way that works is you count 1, 2, 3, you can remove an aeroplane in this space. Needless to say, when you land at Montreal or indeed at any airport, the runway has to be clear from other planes. You may be wondering what these 2 guys are. These are reroll tokens. At the end of each round, this moves down, and if there's a reroll token on it, that means that players get a reroll token that they can use at a later date. And then there's the brakes. These don't actually have to be employed before landing, but the more brakes you employ, the easier landing is going to be. So you'll notice it's only the pilot because of the blue background. Here you have to place a 2, a 4, a 6, and you have to do them in that order. What happens then? Let's say the pilot places a 2. Again, we flip the switch to show it's been done, and then this guy moves along here. The way that works is during the final round, when we have the engine, instead of comparing the numbers to these guys here, then we will actually compare the engine to this here. So in this case, we've actually got a speed of 6, but the brakes are only on a 2. So if we only activate 1 brake, then we would need a 2 that's on this side of the red one, and then we would land safely. If the total number of these two dice is on this side of the red, then we haven't landed safely. Finally, there are these three spaces where players can place any dice at all, either player can place them, and that gains the team a cup of coffee. The coffee means that either player can adapt one of their dice by a margin of 1. So let's say the co-pilot has a 4, but we wish to change it to a 3 so that I can place it here and open one of the flaps. I simply take a coffee, then I can adapt this to either a 3 or a 5, but in this case I want a 3, and then the game proceeds as normal. So the winning condition: when you reach the airport, the wheels all need to be down, the flaps all need to be activated, the speed needs to be less than the red one, the aeroplane also needs to be straight in the upright position, and there can't be any aeroplanes on the runway already. If you can achieve all of that, then you've won. The final round begins when these are in this position. If you are in a position like this, then you've basically reached the airport a little bit too early, so you have to stay and circle around it for at least one more move before you get another go, and then you definitely want to be on this side of the blue or else you've flown too far. However, if you're in this position, then you've lost because you've basically landed too soon. I should point out as well, on the altitude marker, you'll notice some of them are orange, some of them are blue. Those simply denote which player places their dice first. And in a nutshell, those are the basics of how you play Sky Team. You'll be pleased to know that once you've successfully landed in Montreal, there are various other airports that you can land at that have a lot of different challenges that you can play with as well. There's actually an entire little rule book that comes with the game that basically describes some of these things that can happen. It could be, for example, a fuel leak, or there are more aeroplanes getting added as you get closer to the airport. I won't spoil any of that for you though, but needless to say, once you've managed to land at Montreal, you can then take all of this and then amplify it. And quite literally, the sky is the limit. I'd love to know what you guys think about Sky Team. Do leave me a comment down below. I love reading your comments. And subscribe if you haven't already, or give this video a like. That does make me very, very happy. But I'd love to know what you guys think. As I said, I have a review video coming next week for this game, but spoiler alert, I am really, really enjoying it. But in the meantime, yeah, take care, good luck, and hey, land safely. Goodbye.